We begin at the deepest level, the one from which all others descend. Chapter 1. The Principle of Mentalism. The Law. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Most people experience their life as something that happens to them. Events arrive, circumstances form, relationships appear and dissolve. The quality of a Tuesday morning seems to be determined by factors outside: the traffic, the news, the mood of someone else in the room. This is not wrong as a description of experience. It is, however, incomplete as a description of reality. The first Hermetic principle states something far more radical: that mind is not a byproduct of physical reality. It is the substrate of it. Not your mind specifically. Not the particular personality that worries about money and remembers embarrassing moments from 2009. The principle speaks of mind in a larger sense. The underlying intelligence in which all material form exists, the way a dream exists inside the dreamer. This has a precise implication. If the universe is mental in nature, if matter is a form of thought operating at a density you cannot see through without instruments, then the relationship between your inner life and your outer experience is not metaphorical. It is structural. The life you are living is, in a technical sense, a mental event. The ancient Egyptians did not arrive at this conclusion through theology alone. They arrived at it through observation. They watched the inner states of individuals and the outer conditions of their lives long enough to notice a correspondence that was too consistent to be coincidence. Anger held long enough became illness. Fear sustained became circumstance. Clarity sustained became order. Modern quantum mechanics arrived at the same frontier through an entirely different path. The measurement problem, the stubborn fact that the act of observation influences the behavior of particles, does not prove the Hermetic claim, but it introduces the same uncomfortable question: what is the relationship between consciousness and the thing being observed? The mentalism principle does not ask you to believe that thinking positive thoughts will produce a parking space. That is a degraded version of the idea. It asks something harder: to consider that the quality of your inner life, the dominant tone of your thoughts, the emotional register you occupy most consistently, the assumptions so deep you have stopped noticing them as assumptions, is not merely accompanied by your circumstances. It is expressed as them. This is the first law. Everything else descends from it. If you find it difficult to accept, hold it lightly. The remaining 6 principles do not require you to resolve it. They only ask that you keep it open, because each one adds a layer of precision to the same underlying claim. The universe is a mental event. You are inside it. And you are, in ways you have not yet fully traced, helping to write it. Chapter 2. The Principle of Correspondence. The Law. As above, so below. As below, so above. You have probably noticed a pattern in your own life that resists simple explanation. The relationship ends. A period of solitude follows. Then a new relationship begins. Different name, different face, different address. And within 18 months, you are having a version of the same argument you thought you had left behind. Or a financial pressure resolves. You feel the relief. And then, almost mechanically, a new financial pressure forms, larger this time, as if the previous one had been a draft and this is the final version. The pattern is not punishment. It is correspondence. The second Hermetic principle states that there is a structural similarity between every level of reality. The patterns operating in your psychology are also operating in your relationships. The patterns in your relationships are also operating in your material circumstances. The patterns in your material circumstances are the outer face of something running deeper. As above, so below is not a poetic sentiment. It is a diagnostic tool. When something keeps repeating in your life, when the same problem reconstructs itself across different contexts, different people, different decades, the Hermetic principle offers a precise explanation. The pattern is not in the circumstances. The circumstances are the visible expression of a pattern that lives at a deeper level of the same system. This is why changing the circumstances does not stop the pattern. You resolve the relationship, not the underlying template the relationship was expressing. You solve the financial problem, not the interior relationship to scarcity that the financial problem was mirroring. The ancient teachers used a vertical metaphor, above and below. We might update it to deep and surface. The surface keeps reforming because the deep structure has not changed. This has an unusual implication for how you read your own life. Your circumstances at any moment are not random. They are a report. They are telling you something about the state of a deeper level, the level of your persistent beliefs, your unexamined emotional patterns, the self-concept running beneath every conscious intention you have ever held. Most people read their circumstances as feedback about the world. The principle of correspondence suggests they are primarily feedback about you, not as blame, but as information, not as judgment, but as correspondence. The question this principle asks is, what would have to be true at the interior level for my exterior life to look exactly the way it looks right now? That question, held honestly, without defense, over time, becomes the most precise diagnostic tool available. Not a therapist, not a journal, not a philosophy. A mirror. Operating according to a law that has no exceptions. Chapter 3. The Principle of Vibration. The law. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. In 1905, Albert Einstein published a paper that most physics textbooks present as a footnote to relativity. It was not a footnote. It was the beginning of the answer to a question the ancient world had already asked. The photoelectric effect demonstrated that light, which everyone had agreed was a wave, also behaved as a particle. Energy, it turned out, did not flow smoothly. It moved in discrete packets, quanta, jumps from one state to another with nothing in between. The Hermetic teachers, writing in a context that had no electron microscope and no mathematical notation adequate to the task, said something structurally identical. Nothing in existence is truly still. What appears to be solid matter is matter vibrating at a frequency too slow for the eye to perceive as motion. What appears to be stable circumstance is energy in a particular configuration, which means it is, by definition, subject to reconfiguration. This is not mysticism dressed as science. It is a description of the same reality arrived at by two different methods. The principle has a precise practical implication. If everything vibrates, if your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your relationships, and your material circumstances are all expressions of energy in motion, then the question is not whether you are vibrating. The question is at what frequency, and whether that frequency is one you have chosen or one you have inherited without examination. Most people's dominant emotional tone is not chosen. It is a composite of early experience, cultural inheritance, and the emotional weather of the people they grew up around. It runs continuously in the background, below the level of conscious attention, shaping what they attract, what they notice, and what they are capable of receiving. The principle of vibration does not suggest that you can simply decide to feel better. That is not the claim. The claim is more structural, that the frequency at which you habitually operate, the emotional register that is your default, not your peak, is a real variable. It has real effects on what your life selects and presents to you. The ancient teachers used the concept of mental transmutation, the deliberate, disciplined practice of shifting from one vibrational state to another, not through performance or suppression, but through a sustained redirection of attention toward what is already true at a higher frequency, until the lower frequency is no longer the dominant one. This takes longer than a morning routine. It is not an affirmation. It is a sustained practice of inner reorientation, the kind that shows results not in a week, but in a year. What it produces, when practiced consistently, is a life that begins to feel genuinely different, not because the circumstances changed first, but because the signal changed, and the circumstances reorganized themselves around the new signal. Everything is in motion. The question is whether you are directing the motion, or simply being moved. Chapter 4. The Principle of Polarity. The law. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Opposites are identical in nature, differing only in degree. There is a particular kind of suffering that comes not from circumstances, but from the belief that circumstances should be otherwise. Not the difficulty itself, the resistance to the difficulty. The interpretation of a low period as evidence of something gone wrong, as failure, as punishment, as proof that the life you intended is no longer available to you. The principle of polarity addresses this directly, and it does so by making a claim that most people find on first encounter almost impossible to accept: that opposites are not different things. They are the same thing, measured at different points along a single scale. Hot and cold are not two different phenomena. They are two readings of the same phenomenon, temperature, at different positions on a continuous spectrum. Darkness is not the opposite of light. It is light in smaller quantity. Fear and courage are not two different emotional states. They are the same emotional energy, aroused, alert, present, oriented in two different directions. This is not a semantic game. It is a description of the structure of reality, and it has an immediate implication for the way you are interpreting your life right now. If you are in a period of contraction, financially, relationally, creatively, the Hermetic principle does not tell you to pretend otherwise. It tells you something more precise, that contraction and expansion are not two different conditions. They are positions on the same polarity. You are not in the opposite of a good period. You are in the same continuum as a good period, at a different coordinate. The practical consequence of this is that the work of transformation is not to produce something entirely new from nothing. It is to move along a scale that already exists, to shift the same energy that is currently expressed as fear in the direction of its identical twin, which is called courage. To take the same drive that is currently expressed as anxiety and move it deliberately toward its pole, which is called aliveness. The ancient teachers called this mental transmutation applied to polarity, the art of deliberately shifting your position on a scale rather than waiting for circumstances to shift it for you. It also reframes what low periods mean. If you are at the cold end of a temperature scale, you are not in a place that has no relationship to heat. You are in a place that is on the way to heat, on the same continuum. A valley is not the absence of a mountain. It is, by necessity, the geography adjacent to one. This does not make difficulty comfortable. It makes it navigable, because the question shifts. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" the question becomes, "Where on this polarity am I currently located, and what does deliberate movement in the other direction actually look like?" That question has answers. The first question does not. Chapter 5. The Principle of Rhythm. The law. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. There is a particular kind of despair that visits people at the bottom of a cycle, which does not announce itself as a cycle. It announces itself as a conclusion. The relationship was wrong. The career path was a mistake. The person you believed yourself to be capable of becoming was a fantasy. The evidence, at that moment, seems overwhelming because everything around you confirms the low assessment and nothing around you offers the counterweight. The principle of rhythm states something that is simple to say and very difficult to hold during the actual experience of it, that everything moves in cycles, and that the depth of the trough is not evidence of a permanent condition. It is evidence of a law operating exactly as it should. The tides do not consult your preferences. The seasons do not ask for permission. The human nervous system does not offer constant access to peak states. These are not failures of design. They are the design. Energy, in every system that has ever been studied, from the oscillation of subatomic particles to the rise and fall of civilizations, does not hold a steady state. It moves, it peaks, it recedes, it returns. The Hermetic teachers were careful about what they claimed this meant practically. They did not say, "Wait passively and the high will return." They introduced a concept they called rising above the swing, the mental and emotional discipline of maintaining a degree of inner stability that is not fully governed by which direction the pendulum is currently moving. This is not detachment. It is not indifference to your circumstances. It is the cultivation of a position slightly above the swing, aware of it, not merged with it. In practical terms, it looks like this. The person who has internalized the principle of rhythm does not make permanent decisions during temporary low periods. They do not dissolve the marriage because they are in the trough of a cycle that has, in every previous instance, eventually risen. They do not abandon a creative project because the current phase of it is dry and difficult and producing nothing that looks useful. They recognize the rhythm for what it is. They do not mistake the tide going out for the ocean disappearing. This requires something that is in short supply during low periods: the memory of previous cycles. The knowledge, not theoretical but lived, that you have been here before. That the assessment you are making of your life right now, from this particular coordinate, is accurate as a reading of this moment and unreliable as a verdict about your trajectory. The principle does not promise that the next peak will be higher. It does not offer a guarantee. It offers something more useful: a framework for not destroying what is being built during the periods when nothing appears to be growing. Not every season is for harvest. Some seasons are for roots. Chapter 6. The Principle of Cause and Effect. The Law. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There is no such thing as luck. This is not a motivational claim. It is a metaphysical one, and it carries implications that most people find uncomfortable because it applies symmetrically. It applies to the fortunate outcomes as readily as the difficult ones. The principle of cause and effect states that every effect in your life has a cause, and that what appears to be chance is simply causation operating through channels that are not yet visible to you. Not invisible in principle, invisible to you, now, from your current position of observation. The ancient teachers were precise about this. They did not say, "You caused everything that happened to you." They said, "Nothing happened to you without a cause." The distinction matters. You may not have been the originating cause of every effect in your life, but the chain of causation is always intact, always traceable, always operating, with or without your awareness of it. The practical consequence of this principle is not guilt, it is agency. Because the same law that says every effect has a cause also says, if you change the causes you are generating, you change the effects that will appear. The universe is not arbitrary. It is not playing favorites. It is responding with complete consistency to inputs. And you are, whether you know it or not, generating inputs continuously through your attention, your decisions, your emotional defaults, your sustained patterns of thought and action. Most people operate at the level of effect. They manage circumstances, respond to problems, navigate what arrives. The person who has absorbed the principle of cause and effect begins to operate at the level of cause, not because they become omnipotent, but because they shift their primary attention from reacting to what has already been caused to deliberately initiating new causes. This requires a particular kind of honesty. It requires the willingness to trace a present difficulty back through the causal chain with genuine curiosity rather than self-defense. Not to assign blame, but to identify the actual origin point, because the origin point is where the intervention is possible. You cannot change an effect by working at the level of effect. You can only change an effect by working upstream, at the level of cause. The Hermetic teachers describe this as the difference between being a player in the game versus a power in the game. The player reacts, the power initiates. Both are subject to the same law, but they are subject to it from different positions in the causal chain. You will always be subject to causes you did not generate. That is the condition of existing in a shared world. But the proportion of your life that is determined by your own initiating causes versus causes you inherited or absorbed without examination, that proportion is not fixed. It is a practice. Begin with one cause, deliberately placed. Watch what effect it generates. Then place another. The universe responds to every input, without exception, without delay. Chapter 7. The Principle of Gender. The Law. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. This is the most misunderstood of the 7 principles, and deliberately so. For centuries, the Hermetic teachers taught that the principle of gender was the most dangerous of the 7 to transmit without proper context, because its surface language maps too easily onto cultural divisions that have nothing to do with its actual content. The principle does not speak of men and women. It does not describe biological categories. It uses masculine and feminine as names for 2 modes of operation that exist within every human being and within every system in nature, regardless of the body that houses them. The masculine principle, in the Hermetic sense, is directive. It initiates, it focuses, it projects outward. It is the energy of intention, of penetrating a situation with clarity, of deciding and acting. The feminine principle is receptive. It gestates, it allows emergence. It holds space for something to develop that cannot be forced. It is the energy of intuition, of deep pattern recognition, of the kind of knowing that arrives not through analysis, but through a quality of open attention. Both are required, in every creative act, in every relationship, in every life. The civilization most people are living in has a profound, largely unexamined bias toward the masculine principle, toward action, productivity, initiative, and measurable output. The result is a culture of people who are extraordinarily skilled at forcing outcomes and almost entirely unable to receive them. People who can set a goal and pursue it relentlessly, but who have lost the capacity for the kind of receptive stillness that allows insight to arrive, that allows relationships to deepen, that allows the body to restore itself between cycles of output. The principle of gender, applied inwardly, asks a question that most high-functioning people in the modern world have never seriously considered. Am I currently overusing the masculine principle and starving the feminine one? Not as a moral critique, as a diagnostic. Because when the masculine principle dominates without the counterweight of the feminine, when you are all force and no receptivity, all output and no integration, all intention and no space for emergence, the results are predictable. You build things that feel hollow when you arrive at them. You produce outcomes that do not satisfy in the way you expected. You become efficient at generating the life you decided you wanted, and increasingly unable to feel it when it arrives. The feminine principle restores the circuit, not by stopping the action, but by introducing periods of genuine receptivity, listening without agenda, creating without destination, being present with what is actually here rather than constantly orienting toward what is not yet here. The complete human being, in the Hermetic sense, is not the one who has maximized either principle. It is the one who has learned to move fluidly between them, to initiate and to receive, to focus and to open, to act from intention and to allow from intelligence. The seventh law is not about identity. It is about wholeness. 7 laws, 1 reality. It is worth pausing here to notice what has just been described, not as a list of interesting ideas, but as a single, internally consistent account of how existence operates. The universe is mental in nature, which means your inner life and your outer life are not 2 separate domains. They are levels of the same system. Every pattern that persists in your exterior circumstances is a report on something operating at an interior level. That interior level expresses itself outward through correspondence, so that the texture of your life at any given moment is not random, but structurally related to the state of your inner world. What is above is reflected below. What is inside is expressed outside. Everything within that system is in motion, vibrating, oscillating, shifting. Nothing is fixed. No condition is permanent. Every state you are in is a frequency, not a fate. The conditions you encounter, including the difficult ones, the ones that seem like dead ends, exist on a polarity that also contains their opposite. You are never as far from the other end of the scale as the low period makes it feel. Those conditions move in rhythm, rising and falling according to cycles that do not ask for permission. The despair at the bottom of a cycle is the most convincing and the least reliable narrator of where your life is going. Every condition you are experiencing has a cause, and is itself a cause of what comes next. You are always both downstream from what has already been set in motion and upstream from what has not yet arrived. Your position in that causal chain is not fixed. And within you, right now, regardless of where you are in the cycle, there are 2 principles waiting for integration: the force that initiates and the intelligence that receives, the will that moves and the awareness that knows what to do with what motion produces. None of these 7 laws are new. They were not invented in Egypt or Greece or a Chicago publishing house in 1908. They were observed, noticed, given names, transmitted across centuries in the hope that they would land, eventually, in the mind of someone ready to stop treating their life as a series of events and begin treating it as a system, one that can be understood, and in being understood, gradually, carefully, permanently changed. You are that person. The laws are always operating. The only question that remains is whether you will operate with them or simply be operated by them.